there and what we're trying to really push against. And then I'll be passing over to Chris to cover over the actual architecture. So he'll be covering our Cisco Secure architecture, which really embodies everything outside the portfolio. And then he'll sort of do a dive session into email and web security specifically to cover how they protect. And we'll finish off, of course, with a summary of things, and then there'll be some time at the end for some questions and answers. So getting straight into things and getting on. So obviously, you all know we see a lot of transitions in the market all the time. At the moment, some of the ones we're really seeing the biggest changes in are things around mobility, the workplace experience, and of course, video. And what this does, they all really affect the way we do business and the way we stay to get sort of connected. But the best thing we have to do is they change the way we actually have to secure these networks. There's some of the changes we're seeing and we're going to be seeing in the coming years. So on the mobility front, we're going to see a lot more devices on our networks, and that's really because of this boom in using consumer products. So most people have an iPad, an iPhone, a tablet, a smartphone, all the sorts of things that typically use in our everyday life, but then we want to also use in our working life as well. So we're going to see around 7 billion new wireless devices on our networks by around 2015. And then, of course, this blurring of the workplace experience, so the blurring of the borders. So the network is no longer just this static thing that you can secure at each end. It is very much a moving beast. The endpoints are not static. They're not just devices that corporate environments are able to deploy. They are, again, these consumer devices that come in and people want to use. And then on the flip side, there's also the data center. It's being virtualized in a lot of cases now. So being able to get to those applications in there, which are changing and moving the way in which they can then go out to your end users, means you've got to not just secure each end of a network. You've actually got to secure it right the way through the network. So that's changing a lot of things we're seeing. And of course, there's video. Video has changed the way we work massively. So today we're on WebEx. So it means that I can present to lots of you, and you can all be sitting in your offices or wherever watching this. And then there's things like telepresence as well, whereby you can actually have face-to-face meetings over video. But then, of course, all this increase in the use of video means they're going to see a lot of the traffic in the coming years, more than we, of course, already see at the moment. Now, I've said these trends mean that we actually do need to change the way we secure what's going on out there, because we are seeing very different types of attacks these days. And one of these attacks is, well, for the most recent and probably one of the most high-profile attacks we've seen in the last few months, is something called the DQ attack. So this was first seen last sort of September, October time. It appears, we think, to be related to something called the Stuxnet Trojan, and it's probably the last we've seen of these types of attacks. Those of you who don't know what the Stuxnet Trojan was, it's actually a computer worm which was discovered back in around 2010 in June. And what it does is it initially spreads via things like Microsoft Windows, and then it targets Siemens industrial software and equipment. So it's what we call an advanced persistent threat attack, an APT attack, and they're typically linked to government espionage. So DQ is very, very much the same kind of attack, and as I said, it was seen a year later, and it was discovered by a university out in Hungary who wrote about it, did the threat analysis on it, did the report on it, and named it DQ because the prefix that the attack gives to the names of the files it creates, so it gives it a DQ prefix. And as I said, these advanced persistent threats are very targeted attacks. You can see in the damage report section, the real places it was affected were places like Sudan and Iran. Just sort of think about some of the sort of the relationships the rest of the world have with these areas. You might get an idea of why they were targeting and what they might have been doing. So it's not the last we've seen of this kind of attack. These are extremely smart attacks. Lots of very, very smart people behind there. They're doing these kinds of things, and they're one of many types of targeted attacks. So, what exactly are the rest of these targeted attacks apart from APT? So we are looking at things like not phishing messages, but also whaling attacks. So whaling attacks are where a big company are targeted. So people, CEOs, CTOs, CIOs, people who have sort of very high profiles where gathering the information from them could lead to much more monetary gain. There's all 419 scams. So you might know a 419 scam better as an advanced fee fraud scam. So that'll be where you'll get an email from perhaps a bank somewhere else in the world who'll say, right, you've just become a millionaire. We have lots of money sitting in an account for you, but you need to send us some cash first to open that account. So they're very, very sort of targeted attacks, which are much more common as well. Also things like spear phishing, which customize spoof emails. So again, it's making sure that it's going out to people where it might be, an email from Barclays perhaps that's come to you, and it's saying, okay, you need to get in contact and click this link and that kind of thing. And really, we're seeing this shift from those sort of mass targeted attacks because of sort of the monetary gain that our adversaries actually use these for. So last year, we've actually seen quite a decrease in the daily volume of the spam, and we're seeing a very large increase in the number of targeted attacks. Now, targeted attacks often represent around 1% of the overall daily threat messages we see. Whilst that might appear to be quite a low in terms of volume, on a relative basis, the impact, as you can see here on this slide, is very substantial. They're really our adversaries are using these methods to execute these types of attacks, because you can see here the differences in terms of the total cost of things. From a phishing attack goes out to lots and lots of folks. The profit from that, as you can see here, for example, is just under about 10 grand. But then you've got the targeted attacks next to it, goes out to much fewer people, and then you can see the gain that comes off that. Targeted attacks cost more to actually put there, but then the profits are double that. So there is a real drive out there amongst the folks who do this to push this kind of attack, because there is a lot more gain from it. Now, more specific notes, email-based cybercrime is very much a part of this change in the types of attacks we see. The returns you're going to see from mass email-based attacks has actually declined by more than 50%. So it's in the last year, in the previous year, we saw it from around $1.1 billion in June 2010 to $500 million in June 2021. That's a huge drop. Same with the mass spam volumes. So mass plummeted around 300 billion daily spam messages to just 4 billion between the same time period. So we're seeing a very obvious decrease in all this kind of thing. There's, of course, an increase in spear phishing, that means, and the malicious attacks. So spear phishing attacks, they've actually increased around threefold, while scams and malicious attacks have increased around fourfold. And the overall cost of these targeted attacks to organizations worldwide is around $1 billion annually. Now, so the impact these have on organizations themselves. So spear phishing attacks, as we said, although they're more costly to mount and much lower in volume than the mass spam attacks, they do pose very serious consequences for companies. So many spear phishing attacks will ultimately lead to financial theft, which makes them dangerous to the victims and, of course, then very valuable to cyber criminals. And spear phishing attacks, as we said before, they can net around 10 times the profit of a mass attack. As you can see, taken from a very large swatch of information technology professionals across around 50 countries. So this is the rough average that we're seeing. So for every 0.7 of a euro lost in terms of per user, the enterprises will then spend around 1.4 euros for remediation, and then €4.50 for reputation and repair. So times that, of course, by however many users there, and you have got quite a big spend on that. Much the same in terms of web. Web has as many challenges as email when it comes to this, because we are, of course, all users of the web these days, and it's increasing all the time, and there are very significant challenges that businesses have to deal with when it comes to that. So all of these things, from malware infections and AUP violations, so acceptable usage violations, they are the top concerns for most businesses. You've got things like they've lost risks over the web, either by compromised machines or even human error. They are very quickly becoming the next main area of concern for businesses, especially in the climate we've got right now. Probably finally, one of the other fairly large area is this barrier to the adoption of SaaS, or software as a service. A lot of businesses feel they lose the control and the visibility they need of the employees when they go into the cloud. And it's getting people's mindset away from that to understand that, or really there are many cases where this is actually a secure option depending on the business and how it's structured. So now I'm actually going to hand over to my colleague Christopher, who should be on the line as well, and I'll let him go into more detail around the areas that we can we reflect around and how we do that. Chris, I believe you're probably on the line there.
Everybody, I'm just waiting to bring up my presentation. I'll share my screen. Can you see me?
Can you see that?
I'm Chris Friend, so I'm a systems engineer in Cisco working in the Borderless security team. So today I'm going to take you through our Secure X architecture from a high level and just say what that actually means from your point of view, from securing a network point of view, and then move on to the content security solutions which fall under the Secure X architecture umbrella, and discuss in more detail how we deliver protection against these malware threats which Rebecca's just talked about. So really it's addressing a key security challenge which we're hearing more and more about from customers. How do I secure any device anywhere? So networks don't have borders anymore. Users are accessing networks from different places. They could be working from home, working in the office, working from a Starbucks cafe, and still require access from wherever they are on whatever device they're on, moreover. So people are bringing in their own devices, whether that's an iPad, an iPhone, using corporate devices like a Lenovo laptop or a MacBook, for example, was expecting the same level of access to corporate applications and corporate data. And obviously we need to provide secure services around that to not stop people doing their job, but do it in a secure manner. Take into account as well the fact that data is moving into the cloud and there's a lot of virtualization going on around those kinds of environments as well. We need to cater for that environment and provide solutions as well which integrate neatly into those environments and still provide the same level of security, while at the same time provide ever more intelligent awareness of network threats, the kind of things that Rebecca's just talked about, phishing attacks, malware attacks, targeted malware, and the potential that they can do to an organization. So addressing this flexibility which allows the users to continue doing their wherever they are, whatever device they have, but also taking into account the sort of potential threats that we're facing today as well.